Hi, I'm Setiawan. I am a software development engineer at the UW School of Oceanography. I actually came from kind of the scientific field and kind of just fell into software. And now, I'm a proponent of reproducible research because I've struggled through it through my studies. And yeah, it's very important that if you write code, to have the best practice possible so that someone else can pick up where you left off. So I'll start with that. How many have you guys experienced getting code from somebody else and not knowing what to do with it? Yeah, so a lot of you, right? And it's very frustrating. You get someone's code, there's no doc strings, like nothing, readme, nothing, and you just have to figure out yourself. And that is not a way to have a reproducible science. So, you guys may think right now I'm just a researcher and I'm not a software developer, so I don't need to care about that. But if you think down the line, you're done with your study and then now you're passing it on to another person, and if you don't have good software practice, then the other person would have to basically go back a couple of years and figure out everything before they can even proceed again. So now I'm just going to show you basically how to test, document, publish, and share your code. So you guys have been doing a lot of these things, like Christina mentioned about data provenance, and you guys are been doing this if you have made commits into GitHub. So those are a record of the changes to your code, a record of changes to your data. That's within HydroShare. So those are data provenance, and those are good practices to have. And so these are kind of the 5 simple steps to reproducible research. First, you want to record your project's provenance. So just recording how your project evolved over time, and so that someone can track back and to see how you even began your project and that sort of thing. And then second, you have data and metadata curation. HydroShare is a great tool for that. You can go in, upload your data, and then provide the metadata for your data, explaining what it is and how to use it, and so on and so forth. And then 3 is establishing a testing and analysis workflow. I'm not sure if this has been mentioned a lot throughout the week, but it is always a good idea to test your code and make sure that it runs in different use cases, so that you have a very robust functionality. And then 4 is this part that I'm actually going to cover a little bit today. Just test, document, and publish your code. And then of course you want to share it to the world. If you have a great function that will benefit for the whole Waterhackweek community or just the water community, then you want to share it out there, and so someone else can use it. So in research, experiments results are not trusted unless your experimental setup is tested, the method is well documented, and we can demonstrate that our results are reproducible and reliable. So you don't want to have any epic fails, right? I mean, this is basically the classic science. You want to make sure that this all works, and as you get published, and people can actually trust your work. So why would scientific software be any different? It shouldn't, right? It should be exactly the same. You should follow the same exact steps as it is to just kind of the classic science experiment and publications. Okay, so I like using cartoons. This is how I speak. I speak in cartoons. Okay, so clear code is paramount. As I mentioned earlier today, I asked who has struggled through reading someone else's code. Well, that's kind of one big problem is usually as you write software, sure, it might work today, but it might not work tomorrow. And then you don't know what's going on because you didn't keep track, you didn't write down exactly what this function does today, and kind of the versions that were used and that sort of thing. And also, one thing about clear code is following code styles. So for those, I come from a MATLAB, switched to Python, and now I'm like full-on Python person. And in Python, if you are going through that Python road, there's a thing called PEP 8 that is a kind of a style guide that you should follow. You can look it up online and see how to do PEP 8. And there are a lot of tools out there that, a lot of packages out there that can make sure that your code meets that style. So that style guideline will ensure that your code is clear and it's not messy and that sort of thing. So it like have guidelines on how many spaces and how to break up your lines and the maximum amount of lines and kind of how to write your documentation within your code. Another thing, and then moving on to that, now you have your code, and then you have kind of the environments for your code, but you know, your environments are all over, and that's not good. And so good practice for scientific environment creation is also important, because environments is very important because you want to hand this off to someone else. And you know, if you can see here, just in this cartoon, you have this install shell script, but then if you hand it off to a Windows person, I don't think that's gonna work, right? And to another Mac person, that might not work because you know they might have a different environment as you are. And so like tools like Jupyter Hub, you know, Jupyter Notebooks are like, well, actually Jupyter Hubs are actually great for that. You know, if you're working in a team setting, you know, your team can spin up, or your whole lab can spin up a Jupyter Hub, and so now you can collaborate among your labs to make sure that you know, the environments are exactly the same, and then you can ensure that, okay, I'm doing this small you know, analysis, and now you can tell your team member, okay, can you run this in your notebook, and then you know it should work because you are in the same Jupyter Hub. But now if you want to share it to the world, you know, you want to make sure that you have all your Conda environments. So Conda is a great tool to make sure that basically your Python environment is exactly the same across platforms. Yeah, and I'm part of a Conda Forge contributor. So Conda Forge, I don't know if been mentioned this week at all, but so Conda Forge is just a community repository where you know, anyone can really contribute to it. So you make a package, and then you make that package kind of pip installable, but then if you want it to be Conda installable, or you can just do Conda install your package, and you know, Conda ensures that it works for all platforms. So they have a testing mechanism where it will try to run your whatever Conda environment you put in to like Windows, to OS X, to like Linux, and make sure that it all works. So that's why Conda is really great for that. You know, pip, I mean, it sometimes works, sometimes don't. So yeah, so I would definitely recommend using Conda if you ever, you know, create packages in Python, that sort of thing. All right, so I'm just going to introduce this code test document publish cookie cutter. So this is just an example. It is another cookie cutter. So I've created this package about a year ago. It is basically a cookie cutter is a templating thing where you just put in what you need, like the package name, the author name, and then kind of the dependencies, and it will create a template that has basically the structure of the folder that you need to follow, and then the setup.py and that sort of thing. I will go over that if you're not familiar with the Python packaging world. So this package that I've created is called RPPC, and this is the link to it. I don't know if that will actually go to, oh my God, it's gone. Okay. So it's just, this is the URL for it. It's in my repo right now. And those who are familiar with Python programming and you want to contribute, you are welcome to. You know, this this was just my pet project for a little bit with a friend of mine. But this one, what makes this package different from just a regular cookie cutter is I've put in the time to make sure that it works with GitHub, and then you're able to, it creates your whole Git repository, and then the structure of your package, and then it starts creating your continuous integration. So I'll explain a little bit what continuous integration is, and then that sort of thing. Basically, this here creates a skeleton for a reproducible Python package, and so now you're ready to use it. So now you can just put in your code and go on your merry way and be able to share and install your modules that you have created. Yeah. Let me see. Oops. Where did my thing go? I have to go back. Okay. All right. So here's just the steps if you want to create a reproducible scientific software. Actually, I'm gonna mention a case study that we did, Christina and I did with Jim back there with the OGH package. So actually, like 2 years ago, Jim came to me like, I have all these great tools, this OGH that will do all these analysis and all these subsetting, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, great. Can I install it in pip? Like, no. It's like, I don't know how to do that, right? I mean, that's usually the case. Right now you guys are developing great tools, great functions, methods, packages, and that sort of thing that will help the water community kind of advance, right? But if you don't follow these steps, don't make sure that your package, you don't follow the best practices, then your package might not be reproducible and you can't really share it to the world. So here's just a step. One is to turn those code into a package. If you write in Python, a Python package. And I've provided a link here to kind of, this is a great tutorial resource that you can follow. Doing this by yourself can be overwhelming. I did this by myself in the very beginning, and it was very overwhelming, right? You have to create the Python package. So how do I do that? I don't know. I don't know how to create a Python package. Okay, you need a license file. You need a setup.py file. What the heck is that, right? Well, this explains, but you kind of have to create that backbone one by one. The next, you want to choose a license. So make sure that if you don't want people to copy and paste your code exactly how it is, then you want to make sure it's copyrighted, right? You want to make sure that it is your code, so someone else should give you credit if you want credit for that. And then write a doc test. So these are just basically tests. So there are a lot of tools out there to test your code. One tool that is my favorite is called PyTest. It's very simple, it's clean, so you can test. And then if you find a bug, then fix, test, and rerun your code again. And then set up Travis CI or Circle CI or AppVeyor. So these are what's called continuous integration. So what continuous integration, and this is beyond the scope. Now, this is beyond the scope of just a regular scientific computing. This is more now you're entering the world of software engineering, right? But this is the very simple thing to do to make sure that your code always works and that it's robust, this continuous integration. So what it does is, there's a company out there that if your code is open source, they provide you infrastructure where it just runs the code for you and runs the test for you and to make sure that your code works. If it fails, then it'll tell you where it fails, and then you can fix it. Then redo that again. And then, so these three are the different companies, I guess. The Travis CI, Circle CI, AppVeyor. They both do similar things. Like AppVeyor does things for Windows. So if you want to test on Windows, you can use that. Travis CI does Linux or Mac, and Circle CI does the same thing. And then once you know that your code is robust, you know that it works, now you want to upload it. So this one is you upload it. If you were a Python, you want to upload it to PyPy in the very beginning to make sure that it's pip installable. And then after that, once it's pip installable, you can create DOIs. So now you can publish your code in your paper, and so someone else that's using your code can reference it. So I'm going to show you github.com, the OGH code. Just to show you how overwhelming it can be. Observatory. Okay. Oh, I misspelled that. Have I exceeded 15 minutes yet? There you go. There you go. So you can see here, there's a lot of files, right? But each of these files do different things. So this is the actual bulk of the code is here in this OGH folder. So Jim have created, putting all his tests in here. So you can see like all the different tests that's done. See test load function, test this, test that. So these are the tests, the doc test. And then, he's really good at this, putting readmes in like each of the folder, which is great. And then, so these are the bulk of the code. And then the initpy is just making it a module. Okay, and then in Python, in order for your package to be able to install, you need what's called setup.py. If you are new, you aren't sure, it gets very confusing. Like what exactly do I need in each of these? Like a lot of them are optionals, but good to have. So these are the metadata for your package, right? So you know who's the author and kind of the dependencies and the version of and all that. So if you're not familiar creating this, it might take a while. And then you have your license file, like I mentioned earlier. So it's just in GitHub, you can choose a license. I've provided a link in my slide, and I think this slide will be posted somewhere. Yeah, so then you guys can get all the links available. And then versioneers, a thing that do automatic versioning of your package. And then you have the manifest, which explains kind of what other files to be included in your package, because it doesn't just automatically include files. And then README. And README, this is very important. So the README should explain how to install your package, how to work with it, and where to clone. And so it's just information about your package. So, and then, as I mentioned earlier, the Travis CI. So in order for you to activate Travis CI through GitHub, you need this .travis.yaml. And if you've never done this before, and if you're not familiar with bash scripts, it can get really confusing, and so if you can see here, it's a long thing, and a lot of this is probably pretty cryptic, and it was to me in the very beginning. So yeah, and then as you can see here, there's a DOI for this specific package. So if you go to the DOI, so we're using the Zenodo. Oh, what's a DOI? It's a document object identifier. So it's a very unique identifier for your code repository. So you can see here, so this DOI, then you can put that DOI into your publication, and then someone else can go in and install your package. And then you can even know how many people have viewed it, how many people have downloaded your package, that sort of thing. And you have explanation of the author, and then the small text description of what it is, and then just kind of the breakdown of what's in it, right? And HydroShare does DOIs also for the data that you have, which is really great too. So yeah, and all of this are all in GitHub, all these capabilities. And then as you can see here, the build is passing. So this is the Travis CI thing. And I'm gonna show you a pull request. Just for example, somebody made a pull request, but then they made changes to the code, but the checks have failed. So that means they haven't passed the test. And so then you can go in and be like, oh, where does it fail? And then fix that and so on. So yeah, and then, so my package, the RPPC, actually helps you, like what I said earlier, helps you create that skeleton, that giant big files, because it, all you have to do here is create a YAML file that you can specify your name, description, the author, the dependencies, and then put in your GitHub ID if you choose to push it to GitHub right away. Otherwise, you don't need to. Just put that and then choose a license. Then all you need to do is do this command here on your command line. Just to note, right now, I'm not supporting Windows at the moment, but that is in the works. So if you have Windows, sorry guys. Yeah, because as you can see in the beginning, I was struggling with PowerPoint, which I don't really use anymore. So yeah, so if you have any more questions, I'm around today, and if you choose to want to learn more about this, just say so on the board when it's the time to do tutorials we need today. So yeah, thank you.